Hello, this is Mr. Dufresne, and I'm back with a new unit. This is Non-Syntactic Music Elements. Assignment 1, Tessitura 1. Our objective: the students will understand an overview of what non-syntactic musical elements are, understand that tessitura means high versus low, understand what a main idea is, understand what the 1-2-3 method of composing is, use the 1-2-3 method by Leonard Bernstein to compose a piece that demonstrates an understanding of tessitura. Understand how to use the octave function in BandLab, and create a simple groove using strong beats, weak beats, and the steady beat. All right, so non-syntactic musical elements in a nutshell. So non-syntactic musical elements, the term non-syntactic comes from a music educator, a music theorist named Leonard Meyer. And we have syntactic musical elements, which are the basic musical elements: melody, harmony, and rhythm. In addition, we have the non-syntactic musical elements, which are the non-basic, which he has identified here as silence, tempo, dynamics, tessitura, density, articulation, and timbre. So we're going to go through those in this unit and use those as vehicles for improvising and composing. All right, so the non-syntactic musical elements: silence, tempo, dynamics, tessitura, density, articulation, and timbre, when used well and done well, they greatly enhance our musical ideas. All right, so here's a quick guide to all 7 non-syntactic musical elements: silence, lack of sound; tempo, speed of the song, fast or slow; timbre, the quality that makes one sound different from another. So when we change the input source from piano to winds or strings, and then we get into the sound library and we change that to violin or whatever, we're changing the timbre. Articulation, smooth versus choppy; density, more versus less notes, or how many notes we can kind of pack into a certain area. Maybe it's one note or a lot of notes. That really kind of changes the feel of the music. Today we're working on tessitura, high versus low range, and we're going to use the octave button to do that, and I will show you that when we get in BandLab. Dynamics, loud versus soft. Okay, so in order to use the 1-2-3 method, we first need to know about main idea. So a main idea is the primary, central, or most important thing you want to say. Think of this as a musical statement that is like a complete sentence, not a sentence fragment. The main idea should be able to stand alone by itself and make sense. As we go here, we're going to give more details about the main idea by changing it a little bit. We call that variation, or varying the musical phrase. And there's a number of ways you can do this. I put a few of them in here. We are going to be changing the highness and lowness of a note, all right, by changing the octave of our main idea. Now, as we go along and we're going through the 1-2-3 method, you can use some of these other things. You can change the notes a little bit. You can change the rhythm. You can take out notes or add notes. You can play the note, if you really know what the idea is, you could play it backwards. All right. Okay, so when we get to the drum groove, we're going to use strong beats and weak beats. All right, and remember, the steady beat is the main pulse of the music. We're getting the steady beat from the metronome. That is giving us our steady beat. All right, strong beats, when we're in 4/4, like we are, we're going to have the strong beats are beats 1 and 3, and the weak beats are 2 and 4. So we're going to kind of review creating a simple groove here, and I'm going to put just the kick drum on beats 1 and 3 and the hi-hat cymbal on 2 and 4. All right, so Leonard Bernstein was a famous conductor. He conducted the New York Philharmonic. He was a famous piano player and a famous composer, and one of the most famous music educators of his time. He had his own television series where he would talk about music. Um, and that's kind of pretty cool that back in the 1950s he had a television series talking about music education. So Mr. Bernstein listened and analyzed just a ton of classical music, and what he discovered was that what he called the 1-2-3 method, composers had been doing this for hundreds of years. It's a very simple process. So first we're going to compose our main idea. Step one. Step two, repeat the main idea with a change. All right, so we still want that main idea to be, we want to be able to recognize that as the main idea, but we want to change it a little bit to make it a little more interesting. Step three is really kind of two parts. I like to call this 3A and 3B. Repeat the main idea again with a change, and then he called this the blast off, all right, which would be the 3B. So the blast off basically is musician that's kind of transitioning or searching for a new main idea, if you will. So this blast off is the music is going somewhere, but we don't necessarily know where. All right, it's not the main idea anymore. It's kind of searching for a new main idea. And if you just were kind of improvising or composing, you could just do this 1-2-3 method over and over and just develop a long piece, right, based on how long of a composition or how long of an improvisation you wanted to do. The importance of doing the 1-2-3 method is you're working with main ideas, you're developing ideas instead of just playing a bunch of random stuff. We want the listener to be able to latch on to your melody and remember it. But if you just play that same melody over and over, the listener is going to get bored. So that's why the change. And then after 3 times, we kind of move on to another idea. Now here's the step-by-step process. Very detailed. Can't quite fit all of this in BandLab, so if you're having trouble with anything, you can come back here. All right, so let's go into, let me make sure I covered all our objectives here. All right, let's go back into BandLab. Start assignment, teacher's assignment, instruments. Okay, over here we go over to the assignment brief, 5 tracks, and I'm trying to train everyone to save after every track. We've had a lot of students that wait till the end of class or wait till they're done to save and submit. And if BandLab crashes before you have saved, you lose all your work, and that's just a real shame. So I'm trying to, train everybody to save after every track. All right, so before I get into this, let me remember and change them. Slow down the metronome to 60, enable the metronome so we hear the steady beat while we're playing and recording, and make sure I'm on 2 bars counting, and that gives me 8 beats before I start playing. All right, so we're going to choose from strings, winds, brass, piano, bass, or guitars. So any one of those instruments for any of these tracks, except for track 5, which will be a drum kit track. All right, so you can use any of those input sources and any of those sound libraries. And one of the non-syntactic musical elements that we're going to study in this unit was timbre. So when I change this instrument from piano, or I go into the sound library for the different kinds of keyboards, I'm changing the timbre, all right, to a different sound. I'm going to go with, I've been doing some things with these strings here, so I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to go with the sitar here. Okay. Compose a main idea. Consider what was said about main idea when I was going over the main idea concept. So it needs to be a complete musical idea, like a complete sentence, if you will. It should stand alone by itself. All right, now click out of the assignment brief here. Now, if you'd like to enable the pitch to see the notes that you're going to play, you can do that. This sitar is an Indian instrument from Hindustani music, the music of northern India. I really like it. It has kind of a twangy sound. This doesn't really do justice to it. The instrument was made famous by the great Ravi Shankar. I personally play South Indian music, which is more vocal based. All right, so I'm improvising here to try and find a main idea that I like. Remember when we were studying melodic contour, we talked about good melodies being mostly made of steps, having skips and silence or leaps to create interest. All right, there's my main idea. Press record. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to save after every track. I'm going to go back to the assignment brief and look at track 2. Now we're going to repeat the main idea with a change. All right, but we're going to choose a higher or lower octave. So I get that over here. Here's the octave. I was in octave 3 here. And you can change by going up to a higher octave. You can see when it's grayed out, this is going to be the highest note on the sitar. So I was in octave 3. So first you need to add a track. Pick an instrument. I'm going to go with a violin this time to add to my sitar. All right, so I'm going to change this octave. Before I was 3. I'm going to go to the higher range here. All right, now go back to the assignment brief. So one thing I left out. Wait until after your main idea in track 1 has occurred to play this. So we want this 1, 2, 3 method happening across all of our tracks that we're going to do. So I'm going to wait until after this plays to repeat my main idea with a change. Now I'm changing it just by making it higher, but I'm also probably going to change the pitches a little bit and maybe change the rhythm a little bit too. So I had my first idea was to play some version of that, but I'm going to tweak it just a little bit. All right, and I'm going to wait until after we get here. Seven, All right, so we'll hear track 1 is basically step 1. Track 2 is basically step 2 of the 1-2-3 method. And here I'm going to put a note in between these two notes here. Change your rhythm a little bit. Let's go into save. Go into our assignment brief. Track 3, repeat the main idea again with a change, but choose a higher or lower octave, because we're talking about tessitura. All right, lower, raise the octave, same way. And again, we're going to wait until after I've played step 2, so over here, to record. Add a track. I'm going to go back to that sitar sound. So I was in the 3rd octave here. I'm going to go playing the lower octave this time. And I'm going to develop that idea a little bit more, that main idea, by changing it just a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. So I departed a little bit more from my main idea. All right, track 4. This is the blast off. All right, so now in the blast off, I'm kind of searching for a new main idea. I'm kind of going somewhere else. I'm going away from this idea that I had to something, trying to discover something new, and hopefully, if I was going to continue this song and make it longer than the blast off, then hopefully in this period of transition, I would discover a new main idea and I'd start the main idea, start this 1-2-3 method over. Now, we don't want to make this, 45 minutes, but depending on how much time you have, if you really were, wanted to work on this with your own song and make it much longer, that's kind of the process. All right. So I didn't save. I'm going to add a track. And I'm going to add another violin track. So I kind of got a violin sitar duet here, if you'd like. So I'm going to wait until after step 3. And I'm going to change the octave here again, because we're talking about tessitura. It's our main concept here. So we got different versions of high and low. So I'm just going to kind of improvise something. I might start on the note that I started on. But I'm going to go away from, I'm not going to play that main idea again. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. Here's the blast off. All right. And now we're going to go back in. Oh, I didn't save, did I? Save. Save after every track. That way, if you BandLab crashes, you don't lose all your work. All right, track 5 is just going to be a drum kit track. All right, and you can create additional tracks if you'd like. All right, so I'm going to add a track, add drum kits. I'm going to go with this lo-fi hop kit. All right, so now I told you I was going to do some things with, I'm just going to start to talk about this more and more. I'm not going to say that you should do this exact same thing, but basically the strong beats are beats 1 and 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and the weak beats, all right, and that's often picked up by the kick drum. The weak beats I'm going to play on the hi-hat. Play that one. So I'm just going to go back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I might make it a little more rhythmic, just to make it a little more fun. And I'm going to play this the whole time. I want this groove to go for the whole song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I feel like I need a ride cymbal in there, so I'm going to add one more drum track real quick. To make my drum groove a little bit more interesting. I'm just going to add this cymbal in here. 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, let's go back to our save. And whenever you're ready, submit. Let's go back to our objective here. We talked about all of the non-syntactic musical elements. We talked about syntactic, which is basic, and non-syntactic, which is non-basic. So the syntactic musical elements are melody, rhythm, and harmony, and the non-basic ones, which are very important as well, soft versus loud, dynamics, high versus low, which is what we studied in this lesson, use of silence, articulation, density, timbre. We actually did use timbre a lot. We were changing back and forth between different instruments. So we kind of went over the overview of what all the non-syntactic musical elements we're going to use in this lesson. We talked about main idea. We talked about the 1-2-3 method of composing. We talked a little bit about Leonard Bernstein, who discovered that this was happening in a lot of compositions that he was listening to from the great composers. We worked on the octave function, and we started talking about simple grooves. All right, so remember, you can refer back to this document here. Here's the study guide. So before you answer the essential questions, read over this, and you will do better on answering the essential questions. So I hope you enjoyed our first lesson of the new unit, non-syntactic musical elements. And we will be back with a second lesson in the future.